welcome to the Data Center Exchange. I'm Dale Connolly, proud host of a podcast aiming to shine a light on some of the key discussion points and topics of the data center industry. So this topic today is one that's very close to my heart because as a recruiter, it's something I'm talking to day in, day out with many different organizations and clients. And it's also extremely important to the health, the future health and the growth of the industry. And just to reiterate how important it is, in Hawaii in January at PTC 23, there was a panel discussion featuring 5 or 6 CEO of global data center companies. And the whole discussion was their perspective of the data center industry. And when they were talking about the key challenges in the next 5 to 10 years, this topic today came up time and time again. So when I decided that this was going to be a discussion point, I was very, very keen to get somebody on who had a wide breadth or a breadth of experience within the data center and digital infrastructure markets. Somebody that also had a lot of passion for this particular point and topic, but also somebody that had gone out there and actually done something about it and been super proactive in it as well. So I'm delighted to announce Bill Kleyman. Bill, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, Del. And, you know, passion and caffeine are very similar together. But let's hope it's more about me loving this industry than a cup of coffee.
I think this is going to be a lively one.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it's exciting to be here, and it's a pleasure to be here as well. And you really nailed some really important topics right on the head there. And, you know, we've got some time to talk about this, Del. It's going to be a good chat.
It's going to be really good. Right, I'm going to get Bill to give an intro into himself, but Bill's an award-winning technologist, and he's also won awards very recently in this particular field of the skills gap. I think recently, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but you received the 2021 iMasons Education Champion Award for the work that you did with historically Black colleges and universities, and also just helping to diversify the digital infrastructure talent pool. Is that correct?
That is correct, and it's my goodness, it's one of the most rewarding things you could ever probably do in terms of just it's helping students have that eye-opening aha moment and seeing how they can apply their skill sets to our industry, digital infrastructure. They can work in the data center and they can see how cool our infrastructure and digital space is actually much more than maybe some of the perceptions they had.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really really excited to have you on. And one of the bad points of bringing you on is that you've got a far superior podcast rig than I have, and as the host, that's pretty embarrassing. I've got to say. Sorry.
We just talked about this. I see the little pop filter. You've got some great set of cans. I don't know. Like I said, at the very least, we're both going to sound pretty good. Not we're like 50 feet away from a mic.
There we go. Cool. Sounding better than certainly sound better than I look, hopefully. But anyway, so Bill. I'm going to give you 90 seconds. Usually I'll give people 60 seconds to introduce themselves, but you've got such a wide range of experience in the industry. I'm going to give you 90 seconds to give people a bit of an intro into yourself and a bit of background in your career within the space.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, let me, I'm actually going to look at the clock here. I'm going to try and keep it about 90 seconds. So Del, it's telling you a timer. Thanks, buddy. So originally, I'm from Kyiv, Ukraine. My name's not really Bill. It's actually Vitaly. But pick the one you want to call me. And it's really interesting. I started the nexus of my career back in the former Soviet Union, Soviet Ukraine, actually. And my brother used to compete in these telegraph competitions, like telegraph switches, you know, Morse code. And I remember sitting on his lap. He put on these big cans and he'd show me how to communicate with people all over the country and, you know, the far reaches of Russia back then as well. And from that day forward, I just found it so fascinating how we're using technology to bridge these gaps beyond things like the telephone, these new communication tools that we can use to bring people together. And I was like 5, 6, 7 years old, and I thought that was so fascinating. Fast forward to right now. I'm one of the very few lucky people, Del Connolly, in this industry that is not a transplant, that wasn't adopted, that didn't somehow accidentally end up in IT or the data center space. That's actually really weird, and we'll talk about why that's kind of a topic from the Infrastructure Nation Summit, because I actually asked that question. I have an undergrad in network engineering, an MBA in marketing, another master's in information security. So I've stayed in this space quite some time. And I was lucky. Out of college, I worked for a small consulting firm. After that, I was an IT director, a young IT director for a worldwide manufacturing firm, Worldwide Fittings. I learned so much in that organization. And Sean McCarthy, if you're listening to this, you're an amazing boss. After that, I worked for the country's largest, the United States' largest Citrix partner for a while. And I ended my career there as their CTO. Spent a year in DevOps. Whoa, that was left field. Super interesting. Learned so much about application development, cloud migration, application refactoring, and so on. And then after that, 4 years at Switch, where I just made a successful exit, very amicable, back in January 1st of 2023. And between that, I'm a published writer, author. I do a lot of work for contributing editing for like Data Center Knowledge, Data Center Frontier. But honestly, some of the most rewarding work that I do in this industry is obviously the work that I do with Infrastructure Masons. Giving back to the community, educating young people. I call them kids. They're not kids. They're juniors and seniors in college. These young adults on how they can apply their skill sets into our industry. And Del, like you mentioned, that's where I actually won the award in 2021 as the Infrastructure Masons Education Champion, because we've successfully now placed more of these Latinx HBCU students into our industry. And I know we'll talk about this, Del, and I know you can sense my enthusiasm around this, but these are mechanical, electrical, computer, civil engineers who never for a second, and everybody listening, I mean, this is how quickly a paradigm can shift, never for a second thought that they would have a life or a career in our space, in your space, in digital infrastructure. And now they do, and they have these successful careers. So that's a little more than 90 seconds.
No, it wasn't. It was 89 and a half. 89 and a half. You absolutely nailed it. Well done. Give or take. But look, also you mentioned the Infrastructure Masons and also the member summit that has recently taken place in San Francisco. Now, I know that there'll be a lot of people listening to this that understand and know what the Infrastructure Masons are all about. But for those that don't, can you just give us a bit of an overview as to what you guys are all about?
Yes, absolutely. The various special organizations, iMasons.org. I recommend people listening go and check it out. I've been involved with them since 2019, and Infrastructure Masons was established to provide infrastructure executives and technical professionals and end users an independent forum to connect, grow, and give back. The iMasons vision is to unite the builders of the digital age by enabling a global membership to connect, grow, and most of all, at least in my opinion, to give back to our communities. We're guided by this advisory council, which I'm a part of global leaders. And I'm not kidding when I say this. I mean, these are the people who build Apple's and Google's data centers and all the large hyperscale and co-location ones as well, in the largest digital infrastructure portfolios in the world. And what we believe is that we can achieve success by aggregating and amplifying the work of our members and partners across these major 4 strategic pillars and priorities. They are education, diversity and inclusion, innovation and technical excellence, and sustainability. And obviously education and D&I are 2 committees that I'm a part of. But that's it. It's a philanthropic group where we come in, we hang our badges on the door, our companies on the door, we exchange ideas. It was part of our efforts last year, my goodness, in February, where we created and incepted the Infrastructure Masons Climate Accord. And that was a very, very special, several hundred companies that now signed on so that we can create like a food label sticker as far as carbon footprint on everything that we put into our physical infrastructure. So a very special organization that creates true industry awareness through everything from scholarships, talking about the digital divide, mentoring, and focusing on, honestly, just at the basis of it all, creating a more sustainable and better digital tomorrow.
No, I think it's so cool. And, when I was doing some investigation into it, the people involved in it, like you say, Bill, are absolutely top drawer. So, yeah, it's so cool. So cool.
Yep.
And the summit recently, how was that? Can you give us a bit of an insight into how the summit was?
Well, you know what? For everybody listening, if you want to talk about how fresh this summit was, literally just hopped off the airplane. Is today Friday? Like a day and a half ago. And it was really wonderful. I say obviously because I had a lot of fun. You get a chance to see people and get high fives, but we had some really, really important conversations, and believe it or not, a lot of it revolved around Dell. The topic that we're talking about today is education. Getting more people into our industry. Coming up at the end of this month, just to give you a perspective of how important this topic is, there is a DCD conference, New York, DCD New York. I'll be speaking there. And one of the panel sessions, I'm not on this session, but I definitely want to sit down on this, is I'm going to read off. It's, are we about to experience a talent crisis in our industry? That's very strong language.
Yeah.
I don't know if I feel like we're going to experience a talent crisis, but we're certainly having some very serious challenges. Despite the beard on both of our faces, right? I'm pretty sure we're both millennials, but we are actively trying to get more people, more young people in this industry. And a big part of the nexus of our conversation in this summit meeting was, how do we do that? How do we change schools? How do we impact more people? How do we broaden the perspective of who we are? And Del, and everybody listening, I want to say one more really cool thing. In the span of my career, right? I'm still in my 30s, but in the span of my career, I've seen the data center digital infrastructure go from this really well-kept secret to this much more open, much more broader, much more conversation about what we do. And this well-kept secret, I learned, was done by design, right? It was kind of quiet. Nobody really wanted to know about it because it was what the company data was. But that also was something that shot us in the foot because people didn't know what we did. And these young adults, these wonderful human beings who have skill sets directly in line with what we do, they're like, I don't want to work in a warehouse with a bunch of computers. That's what they thought we did.
Yeah.
Warehouses with computers. We are so much more than big buildings and blinking lights. And that's what we're trying to impart. And we were trying to discuss, how do we do that? How do we get that grassroots movement? How do we change our education cycles? How do we create entire new minor and major programs in schools specifically focused on data center engineering?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're doing some amazing stuff, which I know we're going to delve into in a little bit. And I am just about a millennial. One of the things that I am surprised at most is I think I scrape it by like 2 or 3 months or something like that. So it gives away my age.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Yeah,
it is something I should wear a badge of honor. But Bill, what is the talent gap like now, do you think, today? How severe is it right now?
I don't like to throw out fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But let's talk about some real factors out there. During the last AFCOM State of the Data Center report, we took a look at the age metrics, and there's some good news. Last year, the vast majority were in that 45 to 55-year-old range. This year, when we saw the report, it shifted a little bit more into like that 40s range, like the mid 40s range. So we are seeing the population of our infrastructure, digital infrastructure, worker base go down, which is great. That means we're attracting more more young people, more people who want to be in the space and so on. But let's talk about the skills gap. I remember there was a really cool slide. I'm actually going to see if I can bring it up here because there's a really interesting stat that was brought up specifically on the number of jobs that are going to be available in the very near future. I found it. Look how quickly too. Digital infrastructure, the industry is certainly booming. By 2025, there's going to be 300,000 new jobs in our industry. And this is from the Uptime Institute, by the way, if anybody wants to research that. 53% stated they're going to be have hiring challenges. 75% said that less than 10% of their workforce are women. Then we have about 4% only have about 50% of the workforce as women. 42% are saying that they have poaching challenges. We're seeing this massive growth, but all of these little chipping away at the block that are sort of tackling us. We see a skills gap. We continue to see shortages. It's a part of the reason we're seeing investments in new kinds of technologies to potentially have fewer people at the edge. But the truth is that we still need people. I don't think we're in a dire situation, but let me give you a very specific example. I work with in the infrastructure masons, something known as the capstone program. And in the capstone program, it's a year-long course. And by the way, everybody listening, really quick, you can go to imasons.org/education committee. And then on that page, you'll see what the capstone course looks like. It's a very special designed course for a year-long project with undergraduates as well as graduate students at these HBCUs and Latinx universities. And one of the things that we saw was that, okay, during the class, I wanted to hire a couple of students. This was when I was still at Switch. I'm like, oh man, these kids are great kids. These young adults, they're so great. So I approached one of them. He's like, oh, Bill, I mean, yeah, this is great. Great salary, great start, great benefits. But Blue Origin already approached me, so I'm gonna go launch rockets into space. I'm like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Next one, electrical engineer, brilliant dude. Hey, do you wanna come do some cool stuff in the digital infrastructure space? Oh, Bill, I'm really sorry. Sandia National Labs is asking me to do some crazy research on electrical mechanisms. I'm like, oh, so I realized that we're not just competing in the data center space, we're competing with everybody in the technology and industry space as well. So it's a challenge. It's a real challenge out there. We're trying to get these young students, these young adults into our industry, and we're competing with a whole lot of other people. The gap is certainly there. There are so many opportunities. We are still actively trying to find ways to get more of these young people through our doors.
Yeah. And that's really interesting, because a lot of the industries that we're up against are probably on television, or even the renewable industry where electric cars, it's just so visible to everybody. And as you say, the data center industry by design maybe used to be was invisible. How do you think the industry is getting on with making people more aware? And as an example, do you think the average person on the street outside of the industry knows what a data center actually does and how it impacts everyday life for us?
You know, the good news is that I think the general, let's call it the layperson, is starting to get more awareness of who we are and what we do. The bad news is that they hear about us and have really gross misconceptions of who we are and what we do.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a subset of people that feels like we're chugging coal into a furnace to make our servers run. And please, that's not true. We're not doing that. Oh my gosh, we're not doing that. But there's definitely been a growth in understanding. I'm going to give you a really funny example, Del, and everybody listening. I read this really fun article recently. It was all like fear, the cloud is running out of space. That's actually the title of the article. Forget it. It was kind of just one of those. But inside of the article, they said all of this data is stored in data warehouses. And then in parentheses, they said data centers. And I'm like, oh my God, it's 2023. People still think that we're data warehouses. That's just not accurate. Certainly not in terms of a definition of what we do. People are hearing more about our facilities and hearing more about what we do, but that's also created more challenges for us, right? We now have to go, I don't want to say we have to go up against communities. We are trying to work more closely with communities to showcase that we're not loud, we're not obnoxious. We are creating these downstream data centers where directly becoming a part of communities. I mean, like, for example, people think that we're loud. Data centers are loud. Oftentimes, a good functioning data center is going to be at 50 to 60 decibels. That's this, everybody. That's this. It's a regular conversation back and forth. It's nothing insane. And then showcasing how we are sustainable, how we are trying to do more work with wind farms. And now you're going to see more work with SMRs, small modular reactors, nuclear powered data centers. In case you can't tell, I'm a fan of those. I don't think they're scary. I am from Ukraine. I was there when Chernobyl happened. We are not building graphite nuclear reactors anymore. These are water-based solutions. Separate conversation. It's a battle of, on one hand, there's more awareness of our industry and what we do, but on the other hand, there's more pushback. Not in my backyard. That's been like the biggest thing that we've had to fight against in our industry. And that's been a challenge. It's been a lot of proving who we are, what we do, and so on. So while, yes, I think awareness has grown, I think there's still so much education that we need to do to help people understand just how critical this industry is and what we do exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and one of the things that, again, people may be outside of the industry, but in aligned industry with skills that are most definitely transferable. What sort of career can you have in this space? Where can it take you?
I don't know where to start with that. And I know some of these questions, like you sent it over to me in an email. But even this one, you can do almost anything. We work very closely with a couple of veteran groups as well. For example, Lee Kirby is a part of Salute Mission Critical, and then we've got Kirk Ofel, who's a part of Overwatch.
Yep.
And these are really wonderful organizations that take veteran spouses too, and position them in our industry. And my gosh, if I've ever seen a group of individuals, these veterans, who's more suited for digital infrastructure, my gosh, they're wonderful, right? These are people who work in very stressful situations oftentimes. There are people who know how to manage projects. There are people who know how to manage different kinds of systems and functions, and other people as well, very, very well. And for example, military and veterans have seen extraordinary success in the digital infrastructure space. Now, let's kind of go downstream a little bit to the traditional student. We have seen every single type of student that has gone through our capstone program, and they are civil, mechanical, computer, and electrical engineering. And each one of those, through our now multiple years of doing these capstone programs, have found a space in our industry. One young lady, her name is Jai Huntley. She works for EdgeConnects now. She's one of their power consultant, power engineers. And she graduated from Hampton University with an electrical engineering undergrad. And she was up on stage in front of over 1,000 people at Data Center World a couple of years ago. And I asked her the question, I'm like, Jai, did you know that you could do this? She's like, no, I had no concept that I could apply this to power planning, capacity planning, edge and primary infrastructure design and architecture, working directly with clients' needs based on compute environments. She's rattling off this list of stuff that she's doing now that she learned about at school. Similar things like civil engineers, for example, when they learned that they could construct, design everything from the physical building to pipelines, effluent water designs, water conservation, electrical systems, you see their eyes light up. So it's a very long-winded way of me saying that there's a lot of different spaces that you could pop into here. And heck, if you've got a business acumen, goodness gracious, with an underlying engineering background, which is part of the reason why network engineer, and then I got an MBA in marketing. I recommend that if you can, I recommend business degrees. They're really good because they help you understand the language of business. You have even more capacity to grow and excel. The question becomes, do you think the data center industry is going anywhere? It's not. We are the vehicle that is the underlying architecture for everything that is connected. Dell, everybody listening here, there was a crazy study recently from Deloitte, and they said that the average US household has 22 connected devices. Now, time out, everybody, right? You're listening to this podcast, you're seeing these two energetic folks. Come back, get off your Amazon shopping list for a second. Take a look around your desk. How many physical devices do you have? Like a watch, an Amazon device, you've got a phone, and before you know it, you have like a dozen devices, IP addresses in your own house, and you're like, whoa, I'm a pretty connected human being. And beyond all of that digital landscape, it's us, it's me, it's the big hyperscalers, the co-locations of the world, and we need people. Very long-winded answer. Obviously, Dell, there are so many ways that a human being, a person, can impact digital infrastructure, from engineering, operations, business management, and the executive level.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also an industry that can take you anywhere around the world. It's innovative. It can give people such a great trajectory in terms of their career. It's got all the elements, hasn't it? If we get it right for that sort of, and that grassroots level is what I want to talk about. That not even experienced professionals, or maybe not even college leavers per se, but people younger than that. And some of the cool stuff that you guys are doing at the moment with within the education sort of space to give people awareness. Can you talk about what you're doing, Bill, to really light the fire really of the and get that interest in the data center industry and digital infrastructure?
For the first time, we are starting to go deeper into the grassroots element, right? And it's a lot about resources as well. Truth be told, I'm a volunteer. I don't get paid to do this. Many of the staff members within Infrastructure Masons also don't, they don't get paid. This is a volunteer work. And it takes hours, right? It takes several hours a week, whether you're working with students, planning out courses, working with professors, trying to align scholarships, and so on. So, when we take a look at sort of the industry in general, and we figure out how we can trickle down, right? So we start at the college level. This was usually juniors and seniors in undergrad and graduate level courses. But okay, it's been successful, right? We get a lot of students. We have a bunch of scholarships that we're giving out to each one of these students, but we want to trickle down a little bit. So the secret sauce, everybody listening, here's how we found out this is working. Getting the senior most executive of any company to come and talk to a student one time is ineffective. You might have one or two people listen to you, or you might have somebody say, oh, that's so cool. But you're gonna run a fairly short runway, because the next day those students have classes, they have tests, they have school. it's going to flow out of their mind. Now, what we've seen to be really successful is that this capstone program, going back to this example, a year-long course where we're in front of these students multiple times a week and really educating them on the ground up design and business implication of building a digital infrastructure, literally constructing a data center, ground up. So we're starting to look at that from a high school perspective, junior, seniors in high school as well, where we have these longer term courses. There are some really cool immersive programs right now that we've been starting to partner with that take students, for example, and put them into sciences. They put them into mathematics. They put them into career education. And like, for example, you can spend time with somebody on site at a recycling plant, at a farm, at all these different locations. Well, why not start having groups of students spend time in digital infrastructure and data center engineering? Follow the day in the life of a senior executive who can then educate them on what this actually looks like. And we're trying to gamify the system a little bit, right? We're trying to create these modules of learning to help young adults understand what digital infrastructure looks like, what the internet looks like. And we start off with like really basic things. A single Google search can power a 100-watt light bulb for 11 seconds. Whoa.
That's cool.
Everything you do has an impact.
Yeah.
It takes 1,500 gallons of water to create an iPhone battery.
Wow.
Right. And so that in itself suddenly creates an impact, like a tangible physical impact. And so then you progress from there and helping them learn how to actually approach this. Again, long way of me answering this question. We're trying to trickle down. We really are. We're not at the grade school level yet, but high schools, absolutely. Because what we want to do is start to plant the seed, right? That grassroots, literally mentality where these juniors and seniors in high school say, this is cool. I have a future in this, because they do computer science courses. They do programming. I remember I took AP Comp Sci in high school. There was nothing about data centers. It was all about software and developing really cool, systems in C# and C++, which was fun. Don't get me wrong. But there was nothing on physical infrastructure. Now, I was lucky. I went to a technical school, and I was lucky because I got my bachelor's degree by the time I was 21 years old. I mean, I went all year round, and my education was hands-on. I went to DeVry, and my network engineering degree allowed me to have really cool labs with data centers, like literally, like little physical racks. I was taking it out, re-racking Cisco gear, connecting it to the console, doing configurations on there and so on. Not a lot of schools have that physical hands-on approach to digital infrastructure. We're trying to change that. We're trying to open our doors to more students and more people to come and see what we do. Again, the span of time, everybody listening, from going from a well-kept secret to what we have right now is not very long. It really isn't very long. I mean, it's probably the last like 10 to 15 years if you want to even put a parameter behind it. And that's been our career, and it's a big door, big heavy door to open, and we're trying to shove it as hard as we can to get more people inside. That's it. There's no secret to it. And by the way, anybody listening, if you have any other ideas on how we can impact more young people to go into digital infrastructure, holy cow, Del, my information needs to be below this podcast right now, or it could be above. I don't care, somewhere in this vicinity, so people can click on my information and tell me, hey, Bill, there's a school, a university, a group of students that would love to hear more, and how do we get them involved? We need that extra help. I mean, you know what the challenge is, Del? We have more money to give away than we have students. Our founder from iMasons, D. Nelson, he's like, I can't believe we have this problem. We need to have the opposite problem. And we're a few years into this program. We still have the situation. Give us more students. We want to give out more of those scholarships.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. What I like about that is the sustained period of time you're doing something, because I think we all remember being at school and maybe having a person coming in from a local company or an industry, and they come in, they it's exciting. Like you say, you go soccer or football or whatever, and then you forget about it and it's gone. So that's so good that you're doing that over a sustained period of time. The one thing that I with anything relating to grassroots is what you said about your personal time. And I think the industry is short on time because there's so much opportunity. Everyone's so busy in their day. Is that a big problem in terms of getting people to invest in sort of tomorrow, the solution that won't sort of have any real tangible impact until 5-10 years down the road? And I know that's very, very short-sighted, but when you're so busy in the daily churn and the grind, that's got to be a bit of a factor, a barrier potentially?
I'm taking a pause here because I want to say yes, we're definitely very busy, but in my experience in doing these capstone programs, I have never been short on volunteers and people who will happily come in and talk to these students. And I'll call a couple of my colleagues out. Joe Cobb from Google, for example, he has taken the time to go on calls with me to discuss data center construction that I can then share with the students. Kurt Belisar, he's the guy who works on data center architecture, one of the senior most people there for Apple, and he's actually led some of these courses and has been a mentor as well. And he's not the only one, right? We've got everyone from like Nancy Novak, the CEO at Compass, to Dr. Julie Albright, who's a professor at USC. There are so many wonderful people that have taken the time out of their very busy schedules because it is, how do I say this? It's an existential challenge.
Absolutely.
I don't know how else to put it. Like, you can be as busy as you want, but like we have an age gap, like I'm approaching my 40th birthday. I'm still one of the younger people in a boardroom. And the good news is that's changing, right? I'm starting to see more young people in there. I don't have to make that joke anymore. But it's still something that we're certainly trying to fix. And I think the leaders in our industry, and we talk about aging, like the aging out, the graying out of the industry. And, I've learned so incredibly much from my mentors who, have a little bit of gray hair, and that's okay. I don't know what I would do without them. They are so valuable in this space. It's just so many amazing people. I have a slew of list of them. But they understand that this is an issue. They understand that hiring, getting more young people into this industry is an issue. When I was at the member summit, I was up on stage talking, because actually I got news. I am the interim chairperson of the education committee now at Infrastructure Masons. I took it over after Dennis Cronin resigned, and we're helping somebody else with just a little bit more educational background is going to come in and take the spot. But for now, I'm happy to lead it. I asked a question in a room of some of the most senior digital infrastructure people you can possibly imagine from all the organizations you're probably thinking about. How many of you were adopted in this industry? This was 80% of the room?
Really?
Like, what was the anomaly? Like, because I have a network engineering degree, and I started this space and I've stayed in IT, and so many of these people raise their hands. And I'll give you a very, very quick example. I actually wrote an article about her. It's on Data Center Knowledge. I'll share it with you, Del, and you can publish it out here. Katie Ali, she was a music teacher for like a decade, and she was just stuck. She was stuck and she was frustrated. And she came to me and she's like, Bill, I can't do this anymore. I don't see a future for myself. I want to go into IT and tech. And I'm like, are you serious? You're a music teacher. She's like, I want to go in IT and tech. And just to show you how hungry this industry is, she was, I think, maybe 6 or 7 months into it, maybe 1 or 2 CompTIA certifications, and she got a job offer. And I promise you, the next like 2 years, she's going to be making well more than she was over the course of 10 years of being a teacher. The same thing happened when a physical therapist friend of mine came to me, and he's like, I've been here. That's it. I'm stuck. There's a glass ceiling. I can't possibly break to it. No matter how amazing of a physical therapist I am, this is it, man. I can't go anymore. And so yet another person gets adopted into the digital infrastructure space. That's very common. It's a challenge. We want to see more native growth in our industry where people come up through educational programs. It's only been in the last couple of years that we've begun to see actual programs in college focusing on data center architecture and engineering. It's still so nascent.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm encouraged by everything you've said there is that there's people willing to give up their time.
Yes.
There's a real movement of people coming together, because it's definitely a problem that requires, the stronger together mentality, whether you're working for one business or another, where your competitors on the field. It's kind of in everyone's interest to really work together and bring more resources, more people, more ideas to actually get to solve a problem, which, it's going to get very difficult, even more difficult if we don't take action.
It's the problem is exacerbated by some of the trends and statistics that we're seeing out there. There was a data center hawk report that said that vacancy in North America is about 4%. 4.4. This is the first time ever in our industry that it's below 5%. Now, if you take a look at Northern Virginia, 1% vacancy. That's it. There's just nothing there.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. Forget it. There's
Yeah.
just nothing there. And demand is so grossly outstripping supply. We are in a boom, like in a burst of construction all over the world, all over the world. If you take a look at countries like India and continents like Africa, this was something that was reported out in Africa, all of Africa. It uses about 400 megawatts. That's it. That's it.
Crazy.
That's like one of my switch campuses just to draw a comparison. And in places like India, it's a similar amount, 350 to 450 megawatts of power utilized. Can you imagine for a second just how much growth those markets are going to be? Exactly, Del. It's incredible. And we need people for that. We really need people all over the world. I'm not just talking about North America. All over the world, this digital infrastructure challenge is visible. So yes, people are giving up their time, and it's good. But it's a rising tides mentality, right? We need to float these boats.
Yeah, absolutely. And also in between the grassroots work and that coming through to fruition, it's the open-mindedness to take people from teachers or whatever background there's some amazing people in other industries that can. And it's just really encouraging to hear businesses being open-minded to take people, because, I've worked within other industries where it's, has to be from sector experience that we need, has to be from sector. And it's kind of quite single-mindedness. And I get the here and now situation, and everyone wants people with the skills that you can just slot straight in. But again, if you invest in the future, it's going to make the industry, it's going to give the industry far more ability to grow and to flourish.
I want to give everybody a little. You said something that triggered a thought, Del, and everybody listening. This is something that I've seen as far as a hiring practice and approach to like the next generation of people coming in, where I've seen it successful. And this is, just to be clear, this is how I hire and how I look at people. Think of it as a pyramid, right? A pyramid. In the past, the way we used to hire, the top of the pyramid was experience, and then aptitude, and then attitude. Do you have the experience to do the job? Great. I don't care about anything else. We'll figure out. You could be a horrible person. You don't really care about learning, but as long as you got the experience, you'll come on board. Today, that's been flipped, literally upside down. Now it's your attitude, your aptitude, and then your experience. So it's your attitude towards the company. Are you excited? Do you want to be here? Do you want to learn? And then it's your aptitude, your willingness to learn, and your capability to be open. And then the last thing, we'll shape the experience. We'll create the person that we need. And that benefits both us as well as the industry. And that's honestly, secretly, Del, you work in the recruitment practice. That's how you get like the best people, because they want to learn and grow with the organization, because that experience, it could be molded. It could be created for what you actually require.
Totally. I see the best teams across the industry, in any industry. And I go on about this on my LinkedIn page all the time. Hire on values, hire on behaviors. Don't be obsessed. I put it, very recently. Don't be obsessed by technical capabilities. Sure, you've got to have some level of technical competence, but you can train, you can coach that. It's very difficult to coach values and behaviors, and that's the secret sauce of building great teams, in my opinion. And what's again very encouraging for the industry is that I'm seeing more and more businesses that are truly value focused, first and foremost, rather than purely the experience. And other businesses less so, but I see the stronger teams with the businesses that focus behaviors and values.
Absolutely, and I'm excited about that change. And it's been something that I've heard echoed from the leaders of our digital infrastructure age. All of my friends in different organizations, they're changing the way they're hiring. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good. So it's clear that you guys at Infrastructure Masons are doing some really cool stuff. I also like to shine a light on anywhere else or any other really cool initiatives that you're hearing or seeing out there, Bill. Are you aware of anything else going on out there that's worth sort of shining a light on in terms of what people are doing, or maybe it's just sort of thought leaders within this sort of space in terms of the skills gap of the next generation?
There's a whole bunch of fun things that the industry is working on. Some of the things that we talked about were certainly, sustainability. I mean, that was a very, very big one, water conservation, and so on. It's a combination of two fronts, innovation and sustainability. And what's been really fascinating is some of the absolutely awesome creative things that we've seen in the industry. For example, there's one company that's building data centers on the water, right? And what's really amazing about those, maybe you've heard of them, is Nautilus. And I'm writing a paper about them. I just think it's so cool. The option, right? They can put the data center directly on the water, and it's called a downstream data center, not because it's on the water, but you reuse some of the heat, for example, and you can put it back in the into like a building or another capacity. But what they do is they're on the river or on a body of water. They'll take the water, right? They'll modify the temperature to dissipate the heat from the servers, and then they'll put the water back into the stream. Now that water is inert, no nitrates, no chemicals, nothing. The water is going back right as if it was. And so now you have an architecture that no longer uses water for heat dissipation as far as losing it, right? As far as evaporative cooling, for example. And other solutions are, you're seeing, nuclear power data centers with these water-based reactor solutions that are really, really, really fascinating and so interesting, right? I've read about these little modular prefabricated 20 megawatt units that can be deployed very quickly, and these larger SMRs as well that are being developed. In fact, the Nuclear Regulatory Committee just recently announced that I think it's at NuScale, they are capable of deploying a full SMR now for data center architecture. So how we work with power has certainly continued to evolve and grow, and that's been really fascinating too. The overall architecture and design of modern digital infrastructure has changed so much to a more conscious effort, a contextually conscious effort. And that's what we talked about. How do we better impact our world, the people that we work with? And sometimes we cast a really wide net, right? And we say, we're the data center community. Here's who we are. Here's what we do. And a part of the secret is contextually understanding the concerns of a community. That's a lot of alliteration there, accidentally. Yeah, thank you. To understand exactly what the concerns are, how we work with them, how we become a part of a city, a part of a town, not just a data center in somebody's backyard. Everything from like being a water reclamation plant to, a administrative building to things that you can't live without in a city. That's what we want to become. We want to become a part of that community. It's going to take work. It's going to take a lot of evangelizing. It's going to take a lot of learning. It's a part of what I've been doing in my career for a while now, as far as talking about the data center infrastructure industry. And while I can certainly gather a lot of excitement when I talk to others in the space, when I start talking to people who don't know about it, they'll get glossed over pretty quickly. Like, Bill, we love your energy. I have no idea what you're talking about. So you have to drill it down a little bit and be more clear. So I think obviously impacting more people is a big one. But another big thing that we're trying to do is just create industry awareness through things like technical innovation, through sustainability, obviously D&I, and as we've been talking about, education as well.
Yeah. I think, again, that grassroots element, certainly compared to when I was at school, people are leaving education far more aware of the environmental impact of what they're doing, the fulfillment aspects of what they're doing. I tend to feel that younger people these days want to go into careers that truly make a difference, and all of that innovation that you've sort of said there around certainly sustainability, I think, are elements that are going to be really important in again attracting and making it an industry of choice for those people.
No, absolutely, and that's what we want to happen, right?
Yeah.
You go to a traditional college student right now, and like, I probably guarantee that none of them are saying, when I grow up, I want to work in the data center, right? It's usually these traditional jobs and functions that they maybe have heard about. I want digital infrastructure to be an option for them. I don't, we have so many developers out there. We have so many people who are in that space. But I want to create a platform where these colleges, beyond these technical schools, like traditional colleges, offer the opportunity for these students to do something extraordinary. I mean, these are well-paying jobs, Del. These are great benefits, great futures. My friend Katie, since switching, first time she had a chance to go abroad internationally with her team. She went to Jamaica with her team, and she's like, Bill, do you do this? I'm like, yeah, we do this. We go. She's like, I was just in Hawaii recently. She's like, I went to Jamaica with my team. people do this? I'm like, yes, welcome to the industry. Oh my God, you poor girl. And then this is the eye-opening moment, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, you certainly get your fair share of trip. I mean, there's Monaco, there's Hawaii. There, I mean, they're two pretty cool places to go in the industry for business trips.
It's very true. Where are you going? I'm going to Monaco. Why are you going to Monaco? Data centers.
Yeah. Does it have to be in Monaco? Probably. You know.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah, it's definitely. Bill, just look, I really appreciate all the time and all the insight. It really has been fascinating. Just a few things before we kind of wrap this up. I'm
Sure.
just want to understand what's the next 12 months look like for you personally. What have you got on?
Wow, that's a great question. What do the next 12 months look like? I've been doing a horrible job of taking any time off whatsoever. In fact,
You're not good with that?
No, which is kind of scary. It's like, people ask me, Bill, what are you doing? I'm horribly semi-retired. I'm fun employed. I don't know how else to call it. I've been working a lot of really fun projects, sort of separately. A few data center projects, a few data center construction projects, which are really fun. But I think I'm actually working on a very special passion project, I would say, with my home country, Ukraine. Outside of supporting, medic units and military units, I work with a really special organization called Neuro, NEU.RO, and it is a bare metal machine learning, deep learning platform, which is super relevant now because we work with ChatGPT. And so, by the way, if anybody doesn't know what that stands for, it's a really weird acronym. It's generative pre-trained transformer, it's an interesting acronym in general.
Catchy.
But it is catchy. We'll just call it ChatGPT. And I get a chance to work with the solution architect, and actually specifically in the data center space, because they are the only solution in the industry that can look into the infrastructure of where this data is being modeled, and change the schedule and actually lower carbon footprints directly on how you're creating AI and deep learning solutions. So that's been really fun for me. And I think beyond that, I am absolutely going to continue to be deeply involved with the digital infrastructure space. Obviously, Infrastructure Masons, we are going to be doing bigger and broader programs in the education committee. We're actually working with several universities now to develop curriculum, data center minors and majors. Can't tell you how excited I am about that.
Cool.
And then also broadening out our capstone program to have a couple more schools. Obviously, finding time and getting people on board is difficult. Now, if you want to be a mentor, I'm not asking for a lot. Pop into a class every once in a while to talk about your expertise. Again, my information is below. Hit me up. So the next 12 months are going to be beyond fascinating. I think they're going to be exciting, but looking at the crystal ball, my goodness, you can't predict the next 12 months. It's just going to be a crazy fun time.
So when you do get spare time, what do you do with it?
I spend it with my kid, with my family.
Yeah.
I've been trying to just trying to take some downtime, be outside if I can. Otherwise, I will bake bread, sourdough bread, and it's been that's been really fun and very rewarding. And plus, the house smells great.
Bread. There's no better smell than bread in the house. Absolutely. The last question. I think it's a good question for you because you're one of the few that have sort of was destined to be in the digital infrastructure space from a young age. If you weren't in that, what would you be doing?
I hate you for asking me that question. I would be. This is a funny answer. I'd probably be like in theater or acting or something like that. I feel, or I'm an extrovert. In case you can't tell, I definitely think I'd be doing something that's people focused. Heck, I my life has taken so many twists and turns. What if we hadn't left Ukraine? What if we had stayed in there and post independence, and we would have been over there, and my life would have been completely different. I don't know. I think because I was incepted into technology at such an extraordinarily young age, and I found what I used to do, with the Morse code so fascinating, that it never really left my mind, the ability to communicate and work with people all the way through high school, into college, and even into my master's studies in today. I think this was a part of my destiny to be in this space. I don't know what else I would do. I think I'd be a teacher. if I wouldn't do a theater or this, I would definitely probably be a professor or like a high school teacher or something. By the way, Del, when I grow up, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not done yet. That's still a career path.
Like it. And you could definitely be a podcaster, 100%.
I'm just going to come hang out with you, Del, whenever you ask me. It just makes it easier. And then I don't have to do all this other extra work.
Anytime. Bill, I just want to say thank you so much for everything today. Thanks for coming on. Honored to have you on as a guest. It's such an important discussion point. It's so good to hear that the industry is being proactive. I sometimes think that we can be critical of the industries that we work in about what we don't do enough of, and we could always do more. I'm sure we could, but what is so good is that there's so much good stuff going on out there, and it's proactive and it's meaningful, and well done, you guys. And thank you very much for coming on.
It's a pleasure. And by the way, all my contact information is going to be somewhere that Del is going to publish. Don't be shy. Connect with me. Let's continue this conversation. Everything that we do, everything that you do is beyond meaningful. I've had a chance to work with everybody from cabling experts to HVAC personnel to everything in between. And every single person can make an impact either in somebody's life or in general in the data center infrastructure industry. So don't be shy. Let's continue this conversation.
Absolutely. Bill, thank you very much. Best of luck. See you soon.
Thank you, Del. Cheers.
See ya.
Talk soon.